Welcome to the E-Commerce Playbook, brought to you by IWD Agency, where we share tools, tips, and tactics from industry-leading experts to help you take your e-commerce game to the next level. Now, here's your host, Joe McFerrin.
Hello, world. Welcome to the debut episode of the E-Commerce Playbook. This is going to be a weekly podcast featuring topics and issues related to current e-commerce business. We're going to bring this to you weekly from beautiful downtown Austin, Texas. My name is Bradley Markham, and I lead marketing for IWD Agency. And I will be hosting today's episode, but going forward, our guest of honor today will be your host for the E-Commerce Playbook. His name is Joe McFerrin, and he is the founder and CEO of IWD Agency, which is an e-commerce agency based here in Austin, Texas. So without further ado, welcome Joe McFerrin to your podcast, our podcast.
Thanks, Bradley. Yeah, a good warm welcome. I'm glad to be kicking off this podcast in downtown Austin. Really excited to get this started. We've been talking about it and thinking about it for a long time, and I was super excited to get it kicked off. So hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us for this e-commerce playbook.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're excited. We're going to have some great topics, some great guests going forward. So I do want to get to the podcast because the topic of today's episode is just the introduction to the podcast and what it's going to be about. But before we get there, I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about IWD Agency, how that got started, and maybe like we can start with you specifically. Like, how did you get into e-commerce? What was the impetus there?
Yeah, it's been a long road, and that could be a really long answer, but I'll go into some details. I guess at a young age, I was always interested in business. My dad was an entrepreneur. He was a chemical engineer and had a chemical company, and he always kind of raised me as an entrepreneur and talked about running a business. So I always had an interest in that. And then getting into college, I had an interest in web development. And so I did a degree in ISDS, which is business and computers, and a minor in graphic design or visual communication. So from there, I got into web development. One of my first clients was e-commerce, and started dabbling around kind of as a hobby, doing some e-commerce work. After I graduated, I got into the corporate world and started doing kind of corporate life. But I was always interested in the web design and e-commerce, and so I did that on the side. And a few years in, I wasn't really feeling the corporate life, and the web development, e-commerce thing kind of started taking off. It started taking a life of its own.
Right.
And so I decided, I can always come back and do the corporate life, but let me take a shot and try this e-commerce thing.
Hell yeah.
And really at that point, e-commerce wasn't so, really churning as as it is today. One of my first merchants was a jewelry store, and she sold engagement rings online. Cool. And someone slapping down a credit card and buying a $10,000 engagement ring was like a huge deal at that time. So
when is this?
This is probably 2005, 2006.
Cool,
so,
yeah. Early on.
So people just didn't trust the web that much, especially to put down a credit card,
right.
Especially to buy an engagement ring they've never seen before. So it's a lot of hurdles to get over that kind of stuff. And so did a shop like that. I did a automotive store. I did a couple other stores, but people kept hitting me up to do e-commerce stores. And for a little while, I was doing web development and e-commerce. Like I was doing lawyer sites and dentist sites and that kind of stuff. And so, but eventually I decided, let's be one expert at something and not a jack of all trades. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to hone down onto to e-commerce. And this was actually prior to Magento being a thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
what did you use to build the sites on?
There's an open source platform called OS Commerce, and then there's a spinoff of that one called CRE Loaded. Yep. And so we did sites like that. But I saw Magento coming up before it was released. I saw the alpha beta versions. Super stoked about it. It actually had a cool UI. It looked like it had a lot of features, and someone actually putting some effort into it. CRE Loaded and OS Commerce at that time, like it was so dated and nobody was updating the core code. It was just really a mess. So when that came out, jumped on ship, got onto the alpha beta versions, started building shops on it. I think I was building shops on it in the beta version, which you weren't supposed to do, but I was just so excited about doing
Whatever
it.
Works,
yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And so slowly started building out a team from that, slowly getting a developer here and there and getting a designer here and there. And eventually built a full team. I think we're like between 30 and 40 people now.
Awesome.
Full stack of designers and quality assurance, project managers and developers. It just kind of grew homegrown from natural demand and just slowly over time. So
that makes a lot of sense. Obviously a lot of people start agencies, and like you said at the beginning, they do websites for lawyers, or,
right. Yeah.
If it's not a development agency, maybe they're doing marketing services for all sorts of websites. But IWD's focus is e-commerce only, right?
Yeah, just e-commerce. Most of our business has been Magento historically, but we do support other platforms and have started building stores on other platforms such as BigCommerce and Shopify and the others. So
excellent.
We're in this podcast too. I do want to mention that we're not just focused on one platform. We do want to make sure that we're covering multiple platforms. We want to be focused on e-commerce in general and not just one platform.
Right.
We one of the phrases that we say internally is that we are the wedding coordinators of e-commerce.
Nice. Yeah.
And so we like to connect people to the right solution. So we don't ever want to say, hey, we only support this one vendor, or hey, we only support this one platform, because we want merchants to come to us and say, hey, where do I need to go?
Right.
And then us be able to tell them, hey, this platform is too much for you, or this one's a bit better fit for you, or this other solution isn't good for you, or whatever. So we don't want to be too biased into one area.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. When it comes to different e-commerce solutions and e-commerce platforms, each merchant is different and their needs are different.
Yeah.
You have subscription businesses, you have hard products, you have very expensive products, and
right.
Products that require a lot of shipping.
Exactly.
It's interesting to approach it from the standpoint that we're actually going to do whatever you need to do that works best for your company. As long as it has to do with e-commerce.
We're on board. Totally.
Great.
Totally.
Awesome. So your team started in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I know that you guys have an awesome office there. And then you've kind of recently moved the nexus to Austin. So I'm kind of wondering what was, the impetus for making that move?
Yeah.
And how's it working out so far?
Yeah, no, I got down here and I saw the scooters. Baton Rouge doesn't have the scooters, so I was like, oh, we're all in on the scooters.
Loving the scooters.
Yeah. No, Baton Rouge is a great place to be, is a great place to start the company. Austin is the next, Silicon Valley. It's got so much energy. It's got so much tech in it that Baton Rouge doesn't have. And so between recruiting talent or meeting with partners or finding new merchants or just working with, the vibe or the energy that's actually in the city, it's great. So Austin's an amazing town. They're cutting edge. They have, a great work-life balance because they have so many parks and bodies of water and just an active city. So it's been a great move for us. It's been really exciting, and it is kind of the next stage of our agency.
Yeah, I can attest to the fact that it's a great place to be in terms of a tech atmosphere. We have the Magento conference is actually happening as we record this episode today here in Austin. So we can talk about this later, but we actually just had a great tailgate event at a football game here in Austin.
Exactly.
That was well attended by a bunch of e-commerce merchants and technology partners in the e-commerce space. So that's great. So now that we know a little bit about IWD, let's kind of move it over to this podcast. So at some point in the evolution of IWD Agency, you had the idea to start this podcast and you want it to be e-commerce focused. Can you tell us why and what you want listeners to get out of it?
Yeah, we've been talking about this podcast for a while internally. As I mentioned before, we're kind of the wedding coordinators of e-commerce. So we have a lot of discussion with partners and merchants, and they tell us about their amazing solution or amazing case studies or how to optimize a site. And then we end up having those conversations internally and then repeating it to our customers externally. And so what we thought about, why make these conversations so internal? Why not have these conversations publicly?
Right.
And then other people can learn from it and see what the exciting new trends and happenings of e-commerce and see what cool new products are out there. I think it was just, we've had so many of these conversations over and over and over again that To us, it would just be a nice way for us to say, hey, we had this amazing guest and talked about this case study. We talked about these new trends.
Yep.
Why not just put it out there publicly? So it's just the idea of making some of those conversations more public.
Yeah, awesome. So you just mentioned the guest. So what can our listeners expect in terms of guests? Are we going to go more merchant side? Are we going to go more technology provider side? I know they're all going to be e-commerce related, but how do you see that split breaking down?
Yeah, no. So I don't, it's, I think all of the above. So I think we're going to have some merchants on. We're going to have solution providers on. We're going to have technology providers on. We're going to have people from the actual platforms from Magento or Shopify or BigCommerce, and designers and project managers and UI experts and quality assurance experts. And, I think we want to bring everybody together and talk about what's the best for us as an industry, and not just segregate it. Hey, this is just merchants, or hey, this is just for technology providers or people providing solutions. So kind of, just bring everybody in and let's have some real conversations. So, I think it would be great to have a couple episodes about, best UI and designer, bring in an expert designer for that. So.
I can tell you that we have a pretty exciting list of guests already lined up. So we're looking forward to getting them in, picking their brain, and getting some good information there. So when it comes to the topics, are you envisioning each episode being its own separate topics? Do you see those kind of flowing through episode to episode, or is it going to be based on the guest?
Yeah, and this being our first episode and our first podcast, it's going to be some lessons learned, and we'll hear from the community or people that are listening and see what people want to hear about. And if you have any ideas, please hit us up. But right now, the vision is to have it action oriented, so that each episode would have a topic and something that, hey, I want to learn more about best case UI usability type scenarios, or I want to learn more about what are the best shipping methods out there and what are the tools for that, or I want to learn more about conversion rate optimization, or I want to learn more about why the new features of BigCommerce or something like that. So hopefully, if we have a lot of episodes that you can decide, you don't necessarily have to listen to all of them. If you want to listen to number 2 and number 10 because it's more oriented to what your challenges are, then we hope that it'll be easily titled and where you can easily go into the topics that most interest you.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's going to be kind of something for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe even from the entrepreneur on up to the CMO of a big e-commerce company.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, as we kind of put that in a nutshell and wrap it up, is there anything else that you want the public to know going forward about this podcast? We mentioned it's going to be weekly. We're going to try to keep the content fresh, keep it current. What else?
Yeah, no, I think we just really want feedback from the community. Hey, what topics do you do? Do you want to hear about? Have you used a new exciting product? Are you looking for what challenges are you having? If you want to be on the show, just hit us up. But yeah, kind of open to getting some feedback from the community and for it to kind of organically grow and see what resonates with people.
And then where do you want to be publishing this? I know we want to get it out to as big of an audience as possible.
Yeah, so AM radio live,
AM radio.
yeah, AM radio,
okay, right on.
And then possibly vinyl.
Vinyl next.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
And then if you do want a VHS of it, hit up Kevin at IWDAgency.com. He can send you a VHS of it. So.
Okay, so for those of you listening in, Kevin is the head of business development at IWD Agency, and he'll be in charge of your VHS requests.
Yeah. But no, we hope we'll see. Once again, we'll distribute it out to the major podcast and YouTube and some other places and see where people are listening and get it out to kind of the major areas. So,
excellent.
But once again, we'll just see how it kind of grows organically.
Cool. And just so everyone knows, we will be publishing a list beforehand of upcoming guests, so you guys can check it out and kind of get a sense of if it's something that might be of interest to you and in your business. Like Joe said, you might not have to listen to every episode. We wish you will.
But totally.
Anyway, so one of the things that I know that we want to do with each guest that comes in, as we kind of wrap up a conversation about whatever topic we decided to talk about that day, is just kind of get to know them a little bit better on a personal level, make things a little bit lighter here. So tell us a little bit about you. Let's start with maybe give us an example of a thought leader or a business leader who you follow. I know from personal conversations with you that you're a fan of Gary Vee, for instance.
No, totally. Gary Vee would probably be the one that stands out to me the most.
Yeah.
There's others, but the reason why Gary Vee, I've been following him for the last probably close to 10 years when he was doing Wine Library TV.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing his own e-commerce store. He was starting very organically and growing it from there. And it's interesting that, he grew from that into now he's no longer part of Wine Library TV, but he's doing his own agency work now too.
Yeah,
and that's also interesting to me because I'm doing my own agency work as well. So,
sure.
But yeah, he's been inspirational. I like the fact that, he's all about putting in the hard work and putting in the hours and putting in the dedication. And I think that's true and it resonates with me. You can be very talented at whatever sport you might be, like say basketball, but if you don't put in the hours, then someone else is going to outplay you or outpractice you. Right. So you still have to put in the hours. So I do like following him. I think he's a great inspiration.
Yeah, he out hustles just about everybody, huh?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell us, when you're not busy running the agency, putting in all these hours, what do you do for fun? How do you let loose?
Yeah, no, and once again, that's why Austin fits well. I like doing anything kind of outdoors and with other people. So
cool.
That being,
Plenty
volleyball, exactly, or biking or surfing or skiing or running or climbing or basically anything that involves being outside and with other people. I kind of enjoy just letting loose that way, getting out of the office, getting some fresh air. And Austin's a great place for that. So,
absolutely. You can always find some barbecue. You were just talking about that earlier today.
Exactly.
Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And hopefully it cools down a little bit here so you can do more of those outdoor things that you enjoy.
Exactly.
Not having to worry about a heat stroke.
Yeah, 105 degrees.
Oh, man.
Hot. Yeah.
I know it. So talking about fun things to do, IWD Agency, we mentioned a little bit earlier in this podcast, just had an event last weekend. We did a big tailgate party for the UT LSU football game.
Yeah.
How'd you think it went?
No, it was great. It was great to get everybody out there. I think we had a couple hundred people or maybe more, but I'm a big LSU fan. Went to school there.
Brutal for Texas people.
Yeah, they were.
Wow.
They had to walk home with a little shame, but it was a good day. It was a hot day, but we had nice shade and plenty of drinks and jambalaya and a whole bunch of tacos and stuff. So it was great to get everybody out there and have a good time and get a victory for LSU. But we'll replay LSU. UT next year. So we'll see how that goes.
We'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. All right. I'll go ahead and wrap it up here. I just want to thank you for being our guest today. Let everyone know that our following episode, we're going to have a great guest. His name's Quentin. He's the Chief Operating Officer over at Shipper HQ. They do a lot of awesome stuff with shipping integrations and e-commerce, and they're a partner of IWD Agencies. So it ought to be a really interesting conversation, and Joe will be having that conversation with Quentin. So please listen into that.
Super excited about that. We'll be talking about complex shipping and then also how shipping affects conversion rate. So I'm really excited to have him on the show.
Nice. So again, this will be a weekly podcast. Before we go, I want to mention a big shout out and thank you to the people here at Proof Technologies in Austin who have helped us kind of set up this podcast and from a technical standpoint and get it going. So shout out to those guys. Thanks a lot. And again, thank you, Joe. On behalf of IWD Agency and myself and Joe, please tune in to this podcast going forward. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. We're going to have some great guests. So thank you, everyone.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Brett.
Absolutely.
All right.